Rod Fleming in the sunny Philippines here again, and it's pretty hot. I've got all the air cooling off so that I don't get problems with sound, because I know you don't like it. So if I'm a little sweaty, you're just going to have to forgive me. Now, I noticed last night, I believe it was certainly one of the popular papers, but it's gone around the houses, you know, a story concerning Paris Lees. Now, Paris Lees, as you might know, is trans. She's a trans activist. She's a trans woman. By the way, Paris, if you're watching, you're looking very good these days. You're looking a lot better. You're looking very nice. Anyway, she may not appreciate me saying that, but there it is. It's true. She was telling the story of how she had been molested in public toilets at the age of 14, and saying that what was happening was that men were grooming young girls like her as sexual targets, sexually predatory men. Now, you need to kind of think through how this is working. The first point that Lee seems to be making is in response to the current row about bathrooms, which is the most ridiculous argument I've ever heard. Anyway, and recent statements by JK Rowling, whom I think we all have to agree now is basically evil. You know, I mean, she's had the chance to back down. She's had the chance to say, no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend all you people. Da-di-da-di-da. She's just doubled down on her rhetoric. I think we have to accept this is really not a nice person. And she's using her own problems that she had with her husband as an excuse for harming other people. It's just not acceptable. However, let's get back to Paris Lees. And Paris Lees was apparently molested at the age of 14. Now, first thing to understand is that she's English, and the age of consent in England is 16 for both boys and girls. So these sexual activities were illegal. There's no question about that. This was illegal. So you then have to ask, and I think this is the point she was trying to make, why was she in a male toilet? Because it's clear from the stories that these were not women who were abusing these children, or these young people. They're not children. It was men. Women like Paris Lees are no threat whatsoever to cis women, right? They just are not a threat. There have been a tiny number of incidents involving a different type of trans woman, but even those are minute in number. This is not a risk. I have as much chance of walking out the door there, or the window, and being hit by a flying bus, you know, on a charter route from the moon to Mars, as a woman does of being assaulted by a cross-dressed man in a Western public toilet. It's a non-existent risk, but it's been maximised for political reasons to make it look bad. And what Lees essentially was saying was, look, you know, you need to protect girls like me, and the only way you can protect us is by giving us the same protection as women get, which is, you know, you have a private space that men are not allowed into. What's the problem with that? And of course, the next thing you see is people jumping on this and you know, trying to rubbish this claim and victim blaming her. I've not always agreed with you in the past, but on this one, I think you're absolutely on the money. You're totally right. It's absolutely appalling that this situation, which is being led by a group of the most nasty people on the planet, TERFs and gendercrits. You know, these people really are the kind of stuff you scrape off your shoes before you go in the house. They're disgusting, horrible people. They're bigots and they're fascists. However, what is the mechanism that causes these girls to be at risk when they use a men's toilet? And most men wouldn't even think of assaulting a woman if she happened to just use it. You know, if the queue's too damn long, do you mind if I use this toilet? Aye, go on, go ahead. We'll look the other way and use one of the stalls. It's not a problem. It happens all the time, you know. Women are respected by most men. So who are the men who are the threat? And the answer is they're pederasts. Now, pederasts are not pedophiles. That's a completely different thing. Pedophiles are attracted to children under the age of puberty. And it is a disorder. There's a problem with it, a psychological problem. Pederasts are attracted to boys, right, between roughly the ages of 13 to 18, okay? When they become too masculinized, pederasts lose interest. And, you know, do I need to mention the name of a particularly lugubrious English actor who is a well-known pederast? Do I really? The problem is that pederasts think that it's all right to do what they do. And when they see a highly feminine, a very feminine person who may well be male originally, they think that person is automatically a suitable target for them, right? And will be compliant in satisfying their sexual desires. Because pederasts, you know, they don't really have the morality that most of us have. They don't respect the people that they have sex with. And pederasty, by the way, works in a kind of cyclical manner. I think I've discussed this before, where what happens is that young boys are pedicated, is the word, they're penetrated by men when they're young, and then they go through the system. And when they get a bit older, they start being the penetrators. They, in gay terminology, they turn top. A huge part of the new gay man cult is based on pederasty, such that young boys, who are called twinks in the West, are predated on by older males, right? And by the time they reach about 24, 25, when they're no longer attractive because they've become too masculine, they've got too old, they're expected to turn top themselves. This is classic pederasty. And it's a nasty form. It's not like the Greek form. The Greek form, which sometimes called Greek love, was like an apprenticeship in that the older man would teach the younger boy everything he needed to know to be a man. You know, he taught him all the life skills that he would need, perhaps even vocational skills as well. In Japan, where it's called the wakashudo, the young boy would be trained as a samurai, and yes, in return there were sexual favors given, which was acceptable within these cultures. But the point is, it wasn't a one-way street. It wasn't just men taking boys and leaving them. That's what the Romans did. Roman pederasty very much was completely hedonistic. It was like, okay, the boys are there for us to use, and we will use them. And mostly they were slaves, which again, that causes another issue, because, you know, in Greek culture, the boys were not. They were boys from good families. You know, they were not slaves. They chose to do what they did, and a formal contract was written up between the master and the boy's parents. And in fact, this is actually the root of our systems of apprenticeship. You know, it's very much a related thing. Well, of course, you know, most apprentices don't involve going to bed with your master, but you know what I mean. But in Rome, no, that wasn't how it worked. Rome, it was just about, you know, banging. And that's the form that the new gay man has adopted, as a result of being influenced by people like, particularly, people like Benedict Friedlander, who's a very, very, very corrosive and frankly dangerous influence, a bad man. I think that's the word we're looking for here. He was a bad man. So what's happening is that you always find pederasts hanging around groups of young gays because they're looking for an opportunity to have sex with them. And if someone who is a young person who is maybe male but highly feminized in either manner or appearance goes to a place, a public toilet. And remember, public toilets in the UK, I don't know if this is the case in the West, in the US, but in the UK, they tend to be hotbeds of homosexual activity anyway. So the pederasts are going to gather there. I mean, you could argue that people like Paris Lee shouldn't have been using these toilets, but that's exactly her case. She's saying that she had to use these toilets because she couldn't use the women's ones, right? So she was not being protected by society, and that was leaving her open to abuse by pederastic men, right? It's based on pederasty. They call it egalitarianism, but there's nothing egalitarian about it at all. It's just, you know, what the Romans did, brought up to date. In fact, the other group of people who are most famous in recent history anyway, for this behaviour were the Nazis. Numerous French authors, the highest levels of the intelligentsia, absolutely railed against the behaviour of the German officer class. because of the way they abused boys in France. You know, Friedlander's Platonic ideas were what informed Nazism, right? Well, Plato informed both Friedlander and Nazism. And the French were absolutely horrified by this trail of abused boys that was left across Europe by the Germans during their occupation. And they behaved appallingly. They absolutely behaved appallingly. If you read the literature, you'll find it was absolutely a normal thing. This was how it was done. The Hitler Youth, right? The Hitler Youth was a meat locker. Pretty young boys were groomed to be the sexual partners of older officers. It was that simple. There was nothing more to it. Girls in Nazi Germany were groomed to be mothers. Boys were groomed to be sexual targets. That's what pederasty is. And that is what you expose young pre-transsexual girls to when you force them to use men's toilets. That's what you're doing. You're exposing them to some very, very nasty people. You know, these are not men who are going to look after these girls for the rest of their lives. These are not men who are going to provide for them and care for them. They're going to bang them and leave them. It's that simple. That's all they want. And you read Quentin Crisp books and you'll find out there exactly what was going on, what is going on today. And which everybody is going, oh, no, he wasn't saying anything bad about the gays. Oh, the gays are wonderful people. No, they're not. I quite agree. Sexual inverts, by and large, are really lovely people until they get twisted and corrupted by the society they live in. But pederasts are not nice people. Young boys have sex together, and this happens a lot. There's nothing, you know, that's fine, that's just finding out, you know, and they play with each other's bits. No, that does that. That's not, but when adult men are involved in grooming, seducing, and pedicating these young boys, then that's not acceptable. That's really not acceptable. It's not on. And they can't hide behind the, oh, what a lovely bunch of people the gays are, when they're behaving like that. And don't make any doubt about it. Just read the literature. Read the literature. The new gay man cult has two forms within it. One is the ones we've discussed, the narcissistic gays who have an ETLE, whose their fascination, sexual fascination, is with extremely masculine guys. And so they turn themselves into incredibly masculine men. They take hormones, they go to the gym, they take extra testosterone, and they get really hairy, and you know, that's what they like, so that's what they become. It's very similar to the situation with the autogynephilic trans woman. But the other type are pederastic. That's what they are. And they'll call themselves gay. Oh, it's gay because, you know, everybody thinks gays are nice. I'm sorry, but adult men, grown-up men, and we're talking about men in their 40s, 50s sometimes, it's not acceptable what they do. They're interested in using meat, in using the boys that they're able to seduce for their own sexual ends, and then they move on. They go. They don't want them twice. They just want them the once. And that's, I think, what Paris Lee's in a, you know, Paris has said things in the past that I didn't agree with because she's passionate, you know, and she's full of fire and she's young, and it's great. She's a nice woman. But at the same time, she's on the money here. And the problem is that people, feminists, people like Kelly J. Keenmanshaw and JK Rowling and various others are supporting the pederasts. Because what they're saying is, oh, no. We don't want these boys to turn into women. As soon as they turn into women, by the way, pederasts are no longer interested. Because they don't want women. They want young boys. You see? That's the point. They don't want these girls to be given the hormones that they need to stop them being boys and instead to be girls. And as a result, they propel them directly into the path of these men who are monsters. I'm sorry, the particular lugubrious English actor, and you know who I mean. He's one of the most despicable people I have ever encountered. He's a repulsive, horrible man, and his attitudes are even worse. This is not a nice person. And yet, these are the people who are being protected by feminists. If they cared, they would be saying, gosh, you know, you're a vulnerable young boy. Right, don't worry about it. We'll take you into our spaces. We will help you to get the hormones you need. We will help you on your path. And to be fair, a lot of women do that. Feminists are not like that. Feminists really are a distilled form of evil. So there you are, that's that one. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.